doing that on a Thursday night ruined me. Nerds!
Yeah.
You and me are nerds! Let's party together!
Mean guy, which one?
You cried at Mos Eisley when they played I'm Just a Kid and the little like stuffed Grogu was passed around to crowd surf.
I did.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Explained Weekly Q&A. I'm Alex.
I'm Molly.
And today we're going to kind of talk through our Dragon Con 2024 experience. It was last weekend. I'm still tired.
You could still probably hear it in our voices.
Yeah, I'm like recording videos and stuff still, trying to get work done. I'm like, I still feel a little raspy. Most of that I would say is Mos Eisley's fault.
Oh man, I loved it. Super fun. Starting out the weekend doing that on a Thursday night ruined me.
It was a lot. I mean, like the best time. They all threw an amazing party. It's perfect for me. Like just my kind of music. It's Star Wars themed. We got to go up on stage and dance. We were there for 2 songs and I was utterly exhausted.
On stage.
Yeah.
For 2 songs.
On stage
yeah.
for 2 songs. And I was like just wiped. And they were up there all night dancing and singing. I'm like, how do they do that?
Yeah. When I say it wrecked me, I mean physically, like we didn't even really drink that much while we were there, but just starting out the weekend like that, all of our feet were just in so much pain after that. And I wore these like huge platform boots, which did not help.
Yeah, usually Thursday's a more chill time at Dragon Con. I mean, people are partying and they're excited to be there, but we usually don't go that hard on a Thursday.
Yeah, but props to everyone up on stage. Like you said, they went hard the entire time, and I don't know how they have the energy for it, but I'm glad that they do.
We got to hang with the Mosh team, and just thank you to everyone that put on that show. Everyone check out Thank the Maker Pod. Because that's their Star Wars podcast, and they're all lovely people. So go give them some love. They deserve it. And that may have been the highlight from my weekend. I just had a blast. But
I turned on my emo, like high school music playlist to work out today, just to bring back some of those memories.
Just trying to relive it. So yeah, that was Thursday. That was day 0 of Dragon Con.
I don't think we could call it that anymore.
Yeah.
We keep trying to call that day 0.
Technically, Dragon Con is Friday through Monday, but people have made a joke for years now that Thursday is the new Friday, and really now Wednesday is the new Thursday. Like, people keep showing up earlier and earlier.
We might have to check in Wednesday next year.
So, yeah, it was a lot for a Thursday, but we're just going to run through our whole weekend. We've taken some questions about Dragon Con, also took some questions about Star Wars Outlaws that we'll answer, but John Lang had our first question, and I kind of already answered it, but he asked how our recovery is going, so...
Oh, how nice of you,
yeah.
John. Thank you. It wasn't that bad. I think Thursday night, just suddenly going that hard physically kind of just made my joints and my feet hurt pretty much all weekend. But I think I paced myself pretty well this year to the point where, like, we left Monday afternoon and I was like, I feel pretty good.
Yeah. I keep on knocking on wood. I have not partied too hard at Dragon Con where I felt bad the next morning in a long time. Mm-hmm. And 2 years in a row now, I was up late partying and hanging out and dancing and then had a panel to be on at 10 a.m. the next morning. And I was there, and I was mostly coherent, so... I
think just the adrenaline of the whole weekend really kicks into high gear, and that's what keeps us going.
I guess for people who have never been to Dragon Con, it is just this... People call it nerdy gras. It's this mash of, like, a convention that also goes almost 24 hours a day. People are in cosplay, in amazing cosplay, I should say. And when they're not at a panel, they're just partying and having fun and meeting new friends. So it is just like this nonstop thing. And as we get older, it's becoming harder and harder. But we're still hanging in there.
Every year, I feel like for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been like, I'm not doing it this time. I'm not staying up till 4 in the morning. And every year, it ends up happening at least once.
It just kind of naturally happens because, like, night 1... I think we were at Mosh until it ended around midnight, and we went back and we got some sleep. And then the next night, we were probably up till like 1 a.m.
A little later.
And then, like, it just creeps later and later because, you know, this is also a time when we just get to hang out with friends, both local and from afar, that we don't get to see enough. So you want to spend as much time with them as you can.
Yeah. I do want to say, though, that I think this is a great convention for people who are really outgoing and may get recharged with being in like these big social gathering type situations. But for any introverts out there, there's lots of things to do at Dragon Con that are a little bit more introverted. The panels are great. You know, there are lots of things to do if you need to like go and recharge your social battery, because I know a lot of people struggle with that, including me.
It's weird. Like, I consider myself more on the introverted side, but something about Dragon Con, really recharges me. And I think it's just kind of the magic.
You're just in there like, nerds!
Yeah.
You and me are nerds! Let's party together!
It's very similar to Star Wars Celebration in the sense that it's just a bunch of nerds all there to celebrate what they love. And you see some very obscure things that, like, we ran into a Biggs Darklighter cosplayer who was cosplaying from the deleted scene. And I was like, obviously, I freaked out and was like, oh my God, are you Biggs Darklighter? And he got so excited. He's like, you're the only person who's known what I am or who I am. And so there's always someone just dressed in a really obscure thing. I guess we could talk about, you made a lot of people happy inadvertently.
Yeah, I had kind of an obscure costume this year. So I did my Jackson costume, but it was kind of a Playboy Bunny version of Jackson.
Which there's a like Playboy Bunny party at Dragon Con every year.
Yeah, so there's a lot of bunny costumes and like bunny versions of other costumes, especially on Thursday night. That's the big bunny night. But every year there are tons of bunny costumes. And so I did my version of Jackson. And unbeknownst to me, I also looked a lot like a character named Bunny O'Hare.
Bucky.
Bucky O'Hare.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bucky O'Hare.
It's funny, like someone came up and was like, are you Bucky O'Hare? And I burst out laughing because I remembered who that was.
I did not. I was like, who?
Like, you explained Jackson, and then from that point on, I was kind of like, maybe just say yes.
Oh, and I did. Like, at least 2 more people asked me if I was Bucky O'Hare, and I just said yes because I was like, sure, why not? If it'll make you happy, that's who I am. But I did end up in the vendor hall, and I found the first issue of the Marvel Star Wars comic that Jackson is in. Partially because I wanted it, but also because
I was excited to find it.
I was like, I'm going to carry this around, and if people ask who I am, I'm just going to pull this out. Because also, like, Star Wars fans would be like, who are you? And I'd say, I'm Jackson for the Star Wars comics. And they'd be like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the old Star Wars comics. And I'm like, don't feel bad if you don't know who it is or remember.
We got to get Kevin Scott to come one year, and he can just follow you around with a sign.
It's
so
Jackson.
It's like, it's Jackson, not Bucky.
I kind of want to do, like, an official, like, full-on costume, not a bunny version. Because maybe that made things a little more confusing for people.
I think people would still think Bucky O'Hare.
Probably.
You be Jackson, I'll be Bucky O'Hare. And like, no, I'm Bucky, she's Jackson. Moving into the non-party stuff we got up to, Cindy K asks, what's our favorite new thing that we learned at the Dragon Con author panel? And also, Jack says, thank you for hosting some panels and that they enjoyed them.
Oh, good.
No question, just wanted to say thanks. So thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
We enjoyed doing them. But yeah, on Saturday, I moderated the author panel with Timothy Zahn, Delilah Dawson, E.K. Johnston, and John Jackson Miller, which was a lot of fun. I had never moderated one of the author panels before. I think there were 2 this year. So that it was a lot of stress, but I think it went well. I had a good time doing it, and there were some little tidbits dropped that I was excited about.
Yeah, we've both moderated panels on occasion, and usually they're in the Star Wars track room, which is a little bit smaller. A lot of times the author rooms are much bigger.
Yeah.
So that adds an element of stress to it, just the fact that there are going to be more people there.
I have been fortunate enough to moderate like Jonas Swatamo and Emily Swallow when they were there, and it was just the two of us. And I left that mostly up to audience Q&A because they want to ask their questions. They're not here for me. And same thing with the author panel, but having four of them up there, four people that I really admire in a bigger room, that was a little stressful, but I'm happy with how it went. So what was your favorite tidbit?
There were a lot of cool tidbits that got revealed. I know Delilah Dawson talked a little bit about Rise of the Red Blade, and there's a scene from that book where the characters are being attacked by these like giant bug.
I think they're birds in the final copy.
Birds. They're like flying creatures, and she said that she originally wanted to do moths, like big creatures that were moth-like, and they said no, and then come to find out it was because they were going to be the moths in the Acolyte, and they were like, moths are taken.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Can't do moths. There can be more than one moth in the galaxy.
Yeah. But I just thought that was interesting because she loves to put in her own creatures in a lot of her work. And so maybe she'll get a moth in a story sometime after this.
I think the two things that were said that I got really excited about were from Timothy Zahn. One of them he had said before, so it was more of a reminder to me that like, oh yeah. And he talked about wanting to finish up the Grisk story, the Chiss Ascendancy story. He called it the Thrawn Donut story.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that too, because I had mentioned to you several weeks ago, and I was like, do you think Timothy Zahn would ever write a Star Wars book without Thrawn in it?
Which he has done, but not in canon yet.
But like a Thrawn book with no Thrawn, you
Sure.
know, and we were like, I don't know.
Well, the description of that sounded great, where like Thrawn's absence would be felt like very much, I wish Thrawn were here, but it would be kind of about all of his proteges defeating the Grisk without him. So Admiral Aralani, Eli Vanto, Commander Faro. I don't know how she's going to get into the Ascendancy. Can't remember if she was there or not by the end of her current story. But to me, that sounds great. And I'm really curious how they would market it, being like a Thrawn story without Thrawn, because I don't think you could call it Thrawn unless you called it like Thrawnless. But
Thrawnless. Thrawn subtract Thrawn.
Thrawn minus Thrawn equals, I don't know.
Book. This book.
Equals book.
Yeah, I don't know what it would be titled, or if it would need to be titled something else. I think they could still call it Thrawn and change the subtitle, but
I feel like maybe having a Chiss Ascendancy trilogy means they could maybe move into Chiss something, like that could be the title or subtitle that pulls it all together.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was cool to hear him talk about that, and I was sitting in the audience and I was like, oh my gosh, he has thought about doing that.
The other thing that I really liked hearing was he talked about Rook and what happened in Star Wars Rebels, and he said that he has decided in his own headcanon that Rook that died is not the Rook that is in the Heir to the Empire trilogy. Who knows how they're going to move forward with if the Nogri will be in Thrawn's live action story. But he basically said, in my mind now, Rook is a title and not a name.
Like Pharaoh.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the example he used. I like that idea, and I think that's cool of him to kind of, it's not a retcon, it's just in his mind that just wasn't that Rook.
Right.
So,
I think it's like a bit of a retcon, but the way he put it, because like kind of not into the microphone, he was sitting right next to me and I just said, I like that. And he said, we can spackle over anything. It's like, that's funny.
Yeah.
Which I do think that he has kind of done some spackling for the way that he views Thrawn in his story versus how it's been presented in like Rebels and maybe now in live action. Later that same day, we were both on the Acolyte fan panel, and this is just why I love Dragon Con and conventions like Celebration so much, is because it's such a good reminder that online is not real life.
Mm-hmm.
And that room was full of people. I'm not going to assume that they all loved the Acolyte, but everyone that was either up on the table or in the room was very respectful and willing to listen to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wish online could be, but
yeah,
it's just not. But being in that room, being like, yeah, we're having a conversation and we're talking through things instead of just talking at each other
yeah,
through an at sign.
I think the moderator did a great job at, you know, we started off the panel with her kind of addressing the panelists and the room to say, this is a fan panel. We're here to celebrate this show, but that doesn't mean we're not here to criticize it, because we did criticize it quite a bit, but in a open and like mutual respect kind of way. And like, no one was there to waste anyone's time with just like, oh, this is bad writing. Oh, this is woke. Oh, you know, all that silly stuff. We're talking about the show's story, and just the conversations that we had were really great. And like I said, there were criticisms from everyone.
Yeah, shout out to Robin, who moderated that panel. She did great.
We had great questions from the audience, and it was just nice to get good feedback from people in the audience coming up to just say, like, thank you for doing this panel. Thank you for being willing to talk about the show despite it not, you know, coming back for renewal. So that was nice.
Today's video is brought to you by Raycons, who just launched their upgraded model of the best-selling everyday earbuds. The latest version comes with active ergonomic design, multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once, and active noise cancellation. Just 10 minutes of charging gives you 90 minutes of battery life, and a full charge lasts for 32 hours. They're comfortable and able to fit a wider range of ear sizes, and they're weatherproof and sweat resistant, which is great because I tested mine out during a workout. They're great for active exercise or an easy walk with the dog. The multi-point connectivity is awesome if you want to share songs with someone else or listen to 2 separate sources on your own. If you've been curious about Raycons, there's no better time than the present, and Raycon offers a 30-day happiness guarantee. Go to buyraycon.com/explain today to get 15% off your Raycon order plus free shipping. That's right, you'll get 15% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/explained. buyraycon.com/explained.
From there, we went straight to an actual panel we weren't on, which it's kind of rare that we get to do that anymore.
We're not line people anymore. We don't stand in line at Dragon Con.
Yeah, well, like we've been going to Dragon Con for 15 years, and we did the lines for the big panels, which is like you've got to line up an hour and a half early at least. But this time we really wanted to see, this was one of the stars of Star Wars panels. This was Manny Jacinto, Natasha Liu Bordizzo, Giancarlo Esposito, and Danny Trejo. And my goodness, did Danny Trejo exceed my expectations. Like, I was excited to see him, but part of me was a little worried just because he is only in like 2 scenes in the Book of Boba Fett, and I was worried that people weren't going to ask him questions, basically. But he was like the star of the panel. He was so funny.
Your character's story continue. Danny, I would have loved to see more than 1 episode. What would the series of the Rancor Keeper look like?
You know what, I don't know. They just kind of like holded. We did that, and Rancor's got to come back because Boba Fett's riding him.
Need a ride. He's a low rider, baby.
So I'm waiting for that. Put lifts on that sucker.
Yeah, he seemed like he was having a really good time, and Giancarlo Esposito was sitting next to him, and I think Danny Trejo has a little bit of a harder time hearing these days, but he was really nice sitting right next to him, kind of like helping him out, telling him when the questions were directed at him. But then anytime Manny Jacinto got a question, he thought he heard Danny, and he would just start talking. It was funny, and, you know, it was all lighthearted, but yeah, he was super entertaining and sounded like he had a lot of respect for his character of like the Rancor Keeper and talked about it very passionately, which was nice.
Yeah. He was just so much fun to listen to. All four of them were. Giancarlo Esposito takes every single question he's asked and turns it into a motivational speech, which I've noticed that from Star Wars Celebration. He did the same thing. He was up on stage and he started to give the "you have something I want" speech.
Yeah.
But then he's like, "I want your passion. I want your fire." He's like yelling at the crowd and just hyping them up to be like who they are. I'm like, my goodness, this man.
Great hype man.
Yeah, he's awesome. Manny, I know it was his first Dragon Con, and he had a lot of funny things to say. He also had a really nice story about auditioning.
Mean guy, which one?
It goes back to the advice of, what would you give to younger actors? I remember, I'll try and make this story quick. I had an audition for a comedy, and I went in there, and it was really, really bad. And it went to the point where the casting director stopped me in the middle of the audition, and she said, "You do know that this is a comedy, right?" And it really hit me pretty hard, and I was like, I'm a shit actor, I shouldn't be doing this, and I had to reassess myself. But then I was like, you know what, I picked myself back up, and I studied more comedy and read the books and whatnot, and a week later, lo and behold, it was The Good Place. And I will kid you not, if I did not go through that sucky audition, I wouldn't have gotten The Good Place. So you really make of your own experiences, you learn from your mistakes, and don't take those no's, because those no's can turn into yeses. So yeah.
That was a really heartwarming story.
I loved hearing Giancarlo talk about his like clone theory.
Oh no. Yeah, he did.
Anyone else want to share where their character?
I want to live. It was a fucking clone.
No.
Make it true. So mote it be. So when I came back for the last season of Mandalorian, I got in my costume and I felt very powerful. I had one great costume that was mobile and movable, but looked really high and tight. I went to military school when I was younger, so I have a real sense of that militaristic kind of feeling and look. And then when I came back and had this armor that was specially made, that I could only move so much in, I had to let the armor lead the way. And it made me feel extremely powerful, extremely upright. It was kind of had my shoulders back, so there was no way that I could slouch, which gave me a very powerful position in my mind, which was really, really wonderful. And the one thing I didn't have was a mustache. And Jon Favreau comes down to look at me, on the volume, and he immediately looks at me. He crosses his arms, he scratches his head again. That's what he does. He goes, so, no mustache? And I didn't even know where the storyline was going. And I looked at him without pause, without fail, in a completely commanding voice, and I said, no. Yeah, I pulled a Gus Fring on his ass. So he then paused for a moment, and he gave me a look with his eyes, and I said, oh, you want to know why? I said, so the guy's been away for a while, in prison on some desert frickin' island. He came back, and if you noticed, I not only didn't have a mustache, I also had a different haircut, right? So the dude, it's a passage of time, John. He comes back, hair's different, no mustache, he's armed for bear, he's got new armor, and John went, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then when the clone episode came up, I said, yes, this is gonna pay off dividends in the end.
He talked about improvising with Baby Yoda, which was really funny, that they let him kind of improv some lines at the end of season 2. And he was like, part of that is just because the puppet's so amazing.
Yeah.
That he was like performing with the Darksaber and teasing Grogu with it, and he reaches up and then he was like, you'll poke an eye out. And like you see this more playful side of Moff Gideon. And it was all just because he was so in the moment with that little puppet.
Oh, yeah, they all had great things to say about Grogu.
Danny Trejo was like, they offered this $2 million puppet for me to hold, and I was like, no.
They were like, this costs $2 million. Do you want to hold it? And he said, hell no. Which, understandable. I would absolutely hold that $2 million baby.
You'd run away with it.
Maybe not run away, but I would have a hard time giving it back.
Yeah. Just sit down on the floor with it and cry. You cried at Mos Eisley when they played I'm Just a Kid, and the little like stuffed Grogu was passed around to crowd surf.
I did. It was really sweet. We all said the Mandalorian Creed before, or was it after that?
I can't remember.
I think it was after, because it was like, here he is, we're doing this song for him, and then he went on his journey, and he came back, and he was like, okay, he's initiated now. He's a true Mandalorian now. And I was like...
I did that. And I was on 2 more panels. These were both my Friday at 10 a.m., Sunday at 10 a.m. I did one that I moderated about Star Wars Legends and its ongoing influence on Star Wars canon, kind of like speculating on what we're going to see in the Dave Filoni movie and everything leading up to it.
I did not make it out to that one.
10 a.m. panel. A lot of people made it out. I was surprised.
No 10 a.m. panels for me this year.
Not as many people on the Sunday morning panel as the con went on, but still a decent turnout. And the Sunday panel was all about Tales of the Jedi and Empire, which I did not moderate that one, but again, the moderator, Alex B., he did a great job. And the last panel that we always make sure that we take part in is the big Star Wars trivia contest. And Elo Asti asks, is the Dragon Con trivia contest the most prestigious in the industry right now?
In the industry sounds so official.
Yeah, well, I mean, there aren't that many big, well-known Star Wars trivia contests. I mean, it used to be the Schmodown, and now... it's this. I don't know if other cons do it. Star Wars Celebration doesn't even have a big trivia competition.
I'm sure there's other really good ones out there. I would say the Star Wars Schmodown events and the trivia itself, I would say those were more prestigious just because of how the rules were set up and how it was very like regimented. Dragon Con trivia, there's always a little bit more playfulness to
Yes.
it. It is very serious. You should take it very seriously. The test is very hard. But once you get done with the test and you have the finalists up on stage for the trivia competition itself, that is a little bit more laid back.
It's a little, yeah, once you get onto the stage, so you take a written test Saturday night, which, yes, is very hard. And I want to make it like everyone that works on this works very hard. Daniel writes the test every year and then hosts it. And the past 2 years, he has been in Australia at school, and they Zoom him in, which has added a whole level of technical work that needs to be done, and also hilarity from when it doesn't quite work.
Yeah, he'll just start, if he loses audio and he's like, I don't know if you guys can hear me, he'll just start talking, and it's really funny.
Daniel is a joy every year, and he kind of makes this competition to punish the people that are up on stage. And he really punished me this year. Not like it's random. You kind of get a seat, and then every seat gets its own set of questions.
Yeah, and they're like A or B questions for the
Yeah.
first couple of rounds. So there is a multiple choice. I mean, the test is multiple choice. The first couple of rounds of the actual trivia are 2 choices, and then it gets a lot harder from there.
And so I was the highest scorer on the written test, but I think I was the lowest scorer in round 1 this year.
I don't know. What about Evan?
We might have been tied. He can't. Our friend Evan also. I think he got the worst questions.
He got really hard questions.
But he handled it like an absolute champ. He was in the Schmodown and he was a heel, and he was going up there to be a heel again.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone in the audience wound up rooting for him, which I thought was very funny. And yeah, I missed 4 questions, which was enough to knock me out of round 1. And they were just rough. Wasn't my year. There have been some years where I'm like, I got a really lucky seat.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah,
I
me
just
too.
knew them all. And this year was not that. But it's okay.
I think I got really lucky the past... I've only been up there, I think, 2 or 3 times, but I got lucky guessing during those times, I think, for the first couple of rounds because of the A or B questions. And then after that, it's just kind of a who's the first person to name this weird thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, round 1 is very random. And then round 2, everyone that's left, I think they knocked it down to 5 people. They were shown a picture and they had to write down what it was. I would have done pretty decent in that round, but they whittled it down from 5 to 3. And then in round 3, it genuinely is like a who has a weird story or reason for why they know this answer.
yeah.
It's just who gets lucky enough to know one first.
Oh, before they got to the uber hard round, I wanted to give a shout out because they did a whole round on Padme's wardrobe.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a fun round where they would show a picture of Padme in an outfit, and I think that was multiple choice too. It was like, would Padme be wearing this to do this or this?
Yeah.
And you
Pack a
had to-
suitcase or this. And
Yeah. Meet your in-laws or this.
one of them was, would you wear this outfit to either, like meet your in-laws or listen to your boyfriend confess to a horrible crime?
Yeah.
And
It was so funny. And I was just excited because normally there's like 1, maybe 2 women up there on stage. So I was glad that they included a whole round about dresses.
That's our friend Sarah made eye contact with me and was like, you better not miss this one.
Yeah.
Which I did not. I got my dress question right.
So boys, do your research on the outfits for next year.
I think I knew all of them. There was one from the Clone Wars that Evan got that was tougher.
Yeah.
But going into round 3, there were 3 people left. And this is how I'm like, I feel even better about my poor performance. Because if I made it to round 2, I would have made it to round 3. I still would not have won in round 3. And someone who has been up there competing for the past several years, I don't know, like I see all these people once a year. And but Logan, congratulations. He's been competing for a long, long time.
This was Logan's year.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that
Because you can't win every year.
I don't want to win every year. And everyone acts like I'm unbeatable. And I'm like, not in Dragon Con trivia. I've been doing this for 15 years and I've won 3 times.
Yeah.
Which it's good, but
But because you won twice in a row,
yes.
I think people started to be like, okay,
Right. So
get out.
Part of me is glad that that streak has been broken.
Yeah. And it's always fun to see more and more of people we are actually friends with make it up on stage. Because this year, Sean Room was up there.
His second year in a row.
His second year, Zach Burkett made it up there. Evan, and you were up there.
And shout out to Charles from For Light and Dice.
Yeah. Yeah. This was
can now brag that he beat me.
this was his first year to Dragon Con and got up on stage for trivia.
Yeah. So I love that trivia competition so much. I guess I would call it the most prestigious right now because in the Star Wars trivia industry.
Yeah, Schmodown doesn't exist anymore, so
Right.
this is the next best thing in my opinion.
I always thought that Star Wars trivia was harder than Schmodown. It's just that Schmodown had a wider reach.
Schmodown was only trivia from the movies, and then to me, the I guess you could say the most prestigious part of it is the test because Daniel works really hard to make that test every year, and there are some insanely hard questions on there, and that's why I say once you get past the test and you're actually up there, then it's kind of like, okay, everyone here is a winner. Let's see who's the biggest nerd in this room.
Yeah. Everyone up there is there to have a good time. It's not like uber competitive.
Yeah.
It's definitely pulled out my competitive side before. I think 2 years ago, there was a question that I answered. I did a video about it, the Mandalorian cubism question that was like an educated guess, and I got it right. And at that point, I was like, I need to win. I need to win this year.
Yeah.
It's just a fun time.
I was cheering from the audience dressed as a bottle of Cerveza Crystal.
Yeah, I was in the competition dressed as a bottle of Cerveza Crystal. Wish I had one while I kept missing questions.
Yeah.
I stole Sean's beer and took a big old swig of it. I asked for his permission first. But I think that's everything that we have to say about DragonCon 2024. Most of it, when we weren't doing Star Wars things, was just partying with our friends and having the best time. I've got an interview with Charles Soule that came out yesterday. He was there for his first con, and I think had a lot of fun.
Said he had fun.
And I've also got an interview with Timothy Zahn on the way.
And then we took a bunch of video clips of just random Star Wars cosplayers, and so I'll have a video out sometime maybe next week of all the cool Star Wars cosplays that we saw.
So a little more DragonCon coverage to come, but now it's time to prepare for next year.
Yeah.
Only 51 weeks left.
I have some good ideas, none of which are really Star Wars related, but I have some good ideas for next year.
We do have some good ideas for panels.
Yeah.
That I think fit well in the DragonCon vibe of like just having fun and goofing off as a nerd.
Yeah,
So
we've never like hosted our own idea for a panel at DragonCon, but we might try to do that next year.
We'll see. Wanted to close out this week's video with 2 questions about Star Wars Outlaws. So our first one is from Andrew Kylo Ren, who asks, when exactly in the Star Wars timeline does Outlaws take place? So I finished the story on Tuesday. That was basically I'm home from DragonCon and I'm just going to melt in the couch and sit here and finish. That was my project. And I think I can pretty firmly say that it takes place during the Crimson Reign comics. That's my best kind of indicator of where it might be. It's after War of the Bounty Hunters for sure. I think it's before the Hidden Empire.
So we don't have exact years?
Well, it's all in the year 3 to 4 ABY. So
Okay.
in between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
But I'm trying to nail it down even further. We don't have months, I guess. So I have to go off of comic events.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff crammed into those years.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think part of the confusion is when did Kira have time to make an appearance on Kajimi? But yeah, I think that she's just running around. Honestly, the Crimson Reign comics focus less on Kira and more on her collaborators and what they're doing. So I think this was just, I'm going to go over here and cause chaos for the Ashiga clan. But basically, that's when the criminal syndicate war is happening. And at the start of the Hidden Empire comics, they all realize they've been manipulated by Crimson Dawn and they stop fighting.
Okay.
Sort of. But that's why I think it's just the Crimson Reign era of comics.
We'll find out whenever the next edition of Star Wars Timelines
Right.
comes out.
And I wanted to point out on Monday, I'm going to have a video about just the story, a story review, since I didn't have a chance to really do that before when the game was out. It took me a while to finish it, which was a good sign. I really liked it.
Yeah. And I'm going to start my very own game maybe today. We're running out of time for it to be today, but
You keep saying that.
I had planned for it to be today.
You planned for it to be yesterday.
This weekend for sure.
And finally, Damien Vonderhaar asks, which of Nyx's abilities would we most want to train Pippin to do? And I'll throw Helo's down here as well. He should get some abilities. Actually, I have one for Helo. I would train Helo to be stealthy and quiet. That would be great. If he could just not bark at every little thing.
He is the opposite of that most of the time.
I feel like people see him, they don't see him. He's just lying here, and this is the chillest he ever is. And anytime we're like trying to do anything else.
He was in last week's video.
Yeah.
Still being chill, but his head was in the middle.
Yeah, I'm just saying, he's getting up. He's like, y'all talking about me? He's right there. He's being a good boy. When we're down cooking or trying to watch TV, every little noise, he starts barking.
Yeah. I guess if I could get Pippin to do something that Nyx can do, I guess it would be to go and retrieve things for me. As of right now, Pippin would never do that because he is only in life for himself and his needs. So I could ask him to go get me stuff all day long and he would just stare at me. So
Nyx looks like a cat but acts more like a dog, but does have like the mobility of a cat. It's a very interesting mix.
Certainly more like a service dog that is helpful.
I mean, yeah, go get this for me. Go turn off that. I would train Pippin to turn off that light switch. That it's like in our TV, and it bugs me. So I like get up and I have to go turn it off. But if I can
The light from the kitchen.
The kitchen light reflects onto the TV. Molly doesn't care about it at all. But if
It's
I could
not
just be like,
something
hey,
that-
Pippin, hit that light for me.
It's not something that really registers, I guess, in my eyeballs, so it doesn't bother me.
It bugs me. So that's what I would do, I guess. Just, hey, hit that button for me so I don't have to get up off the couch and make old man noises.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, I lost my phone again. Go find it, please.
Just go
and
find it.
Bring it back to me.
It could be anywhere.
Well, he would also have the little eyesight thing where, what's it called?
Yeah, like, I don't know what to call that. The little pulse that...
The sensing capabilities where it like points you to the direction of whatever it is that you can interact with.
That's a good idea.
I guess that's two things, but...
I would train him to eat with me. But Pippin would...
could do that now.
I mean, to be polite about it, Pippin would try to eat all my food, does try to eat all my food. Nix will sit there and share a meal with Kay, and it's very cute and sweet.
Yeah.
Pippin will try to steal all my food.
We could try to take Pippin out to a restaurant and just put him up on the table and see what he does.
Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, that would be cute.
It'd be like a fun Mythbusters style video. But that's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.